and good morning to everybody. Welcome to South Cambridgeshire District Council Cabinet meeting. So we are online, both with the live stream and online members of the Cabinet. My name is Brian Milnes. I'm chairing this meeting this morning in the absence of our leader Bridget Smith, and I'm joined by my colleague Peter MacDonald, and Councillor MacDonald will be vice-chairing this meeting for me and trying to kick me under the table when I get things wrong, because I'm not used to doing this. So you'll have to excuse any mistakes on the way, and I'll rectify them as we go. Thank you. Yes, so I'll invite other attendees. I'll introduce them when invite them to speak this morning. Those in the chamber, a reminder that the meeting is being live streamed by your presence here in the chamber and via the video conference. You are deemed to have consented to being filmed and to the use of images and sound recordings for a webcast and archive recording. The normal excuse me a second. That's fine. Yes, the normal procedure at Cabinet is to take votes by affirmation. When we move to a vote on any item, I'll ask if members agree with the proposal. Only those members of the Cabinet present in the chamber will be able to move and second motions and vote. Members present virtually may speak in the debate, and we have that situation this morning. Members of the Cabinet will be entitled to speak before non-Cabinet members. Any other members present will then be able to speak. May I ask those of us who are joining us remotely to ensure that their camera and microphone remain off unless they are addressing the committee. And for those of us present in the room, please ensure your microphone is close to you and speak clearly when addressing the room. So item 1 is apologies for absence, and I've already mentioned Councillor Bridget Smith. Anybody else?
No, only that we have Councillor Warren Green online today.
Yeah, thank you. Item 2 is declaration of interest. Do any members have interest to declare in relation to any of the items of business on this agenda? No, I see nothing. If an interest subsequently becomes apparent later in the meeting, you can raise it at that point. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Members are asked to approve the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday the 19th of March, set out in the additional information pack, and I move the approval of these minutes as a correct record. Is that seconded?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Do members agree to approve the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anybody want to vote against? Anybody want to abstain? I hear nothing. So Cabinet therefore agrees the approval of the minutes as a correct record by affirmation. Item 4 is announcements, and I've got a couple of things to say. One is a notable government grant under the Warm Homes funding provision, and I'm pleased to be able to report that we've been allocated £8.2 million to improve the thermal efficiency of our housing stock, so that's very good news. And I'm sure Councillor John Batchelor and his colleagues will be very pleased with that, and it will give us a great boost for thermally efficient homes in our stock. Thank you. I'd now like to ask Tumi. I think she's got something to say about one of her planning colleagues. Thank you. Tumi Hawkins.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. My announcement today is one I wish I didn't have to make, but here we are. At the end of next month, Caroline Hunt, our Strategic Planning Manager in the Greater Cambridgeshire Planning Service, will be retiring. Now, Caroline has been an employee here in South Cam since, I understand, 1999. And obviously, over the last 25 years, she's worked with commitment and professionalism to deliver, firstly, the local plan that we had in 2007, and then after that, the 2018 South Cambs local plan, which I remember very well because I was here. And I do recall sitting across the table from her a number of times, talking these things through. Along the way, she's helped to create the planning context for award-winning developments that we've got, such as in Eddington, Trumpington Meadows, and she supported the area action plans at Northstowe and Cambridge Airport. More recently, Caroline has been leading work with the Combined Authority on the emerging transport strategy and supporting the development of policy for Northeast Cambridge. She's also played a key role in building the case for the infrastructure investment at Greater Cambridge. Now, as one of the senior managers in the planning service since 2018, she has played a very important role in creating what we now have as the award-winning Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service. Hooray. But she will be missed by all of us, colleagues and members, including myself, as we have benefited so much from her guidance and expertise. I hope, therefore, you can join me in acknowledging her service and her contribution not only to South Cambs as a district, but to all of us. She heads off to her retirement. We wish her the best. And yeah, thank you, Caroline. Hopefully you're listening somewhere. We'll miss you.
Thank you. And I'd like to corroborate particularly Caroline's tolerance with those of us councillors who are very poorly informed and took great care in making sure we were much better informed along our journey. So thank you. Actually, we have another retirement as well. And our Section 151 officer, Peter Maddock, who is equally tolerant of such ignorance in his colleagues. And I'd like to personally say thank you to Peter for his very considerable effort in keeping the finances of this organisation on an even keel. We are in a very fortunate position, and by contrast with some of the alternative councils across the country who are financially struggling, Peter has managed with his colleague John Williams on the cabinet to keep us on the straight and narrow. So thank you. John, I don't know if you would like to add to that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to add, it's been such a delight working with Peter over the last, I think, 5 years or 6 years? Nearly 6 years. And Peter's been on the journey with us to deliver what everyone now recognises is a financially secure council. And I think, congratulations to him and his team on achieving that. So thank you very much.
We do hope you enjoy your retirement, although I understand that you may be helping on a handover basis in the coming months. So thanks again. Item 5, there are no public questions. And item 6 is an update from scrutiny. Councillor Annan Bradnam very stoically reporting for us, and we will take items as they're coming up in the agenda, which is our normal way of operating, but I don't know if you want to say anything in the meantime.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. I'll take them as they turn up on the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bradnam. Okay, so item 7 then. First substantive item is the Q3 performance report. Councillor John Williams is going to introduce this, and we have Kevin, its primary author, with us in if anybody's got any questions. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I just formally move this. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm happy to second that. Have we got any questions on the performance? Yes, a contribution from the scrutiny reporter. Thank you. Councillor Brandon.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. So I just wanted to explain to members that there is a creditably brief report from our committee, but actually that belies the fact that we had a very detailed discussion of the various aspects on the agenda, which I won't bore you with, but what I wanted to reassure you is that the Scrutiny and Overview Committee take their role very seriously, and we had some very intense questioning of on various aspects of the Q3 performance report. Often there are questions about the satisfaction of tenants with responsive repairs and how quickly they're happening. We talked about black bin waste and questions about are we monitoring how many kilograms of black bin waste are being handled, and have we done any, for example, the rate had increased over Christmas, and one of the members asked, have we done any campaigns to reduce the waste over Christmas? And indeed, of course, we have. Thank you to Bode and his team for doing that. We looked at damp and mould in our housing stock, and we were reassured by responses there. We also looked at the KPI, which is the average days to re-let our council homes, which has been a demanding KPI for a very long time, and we felt it was slightly unreasonable, but for perfectly sensible reasons. That is not being changed while we've been doing the 4-day week trial, because it wouldn't be appropriate to change that partway through. We're delighted that the time taken to process planning applications has increased in all regard, which is very reassuring. So the questions were, is it a real improvement? It's not just an extension of time. And no, the answer was, no, these are real improvements, which is very reassuring. And the staff turnover had reduced, and also simple things like the number of fly tips had been cleared, which is also reassuring for us living in it, making sure that our district is clean and tidy. So there were all sorts of questions about why is this stopped? Are we looking at this? Are we interrogating the data carefully? And I just wanted to reassure you that Overview and Scrutiny Committee give the officers and the members a run for their money, and we make sure that we are scrutinising appropriately. Thank you, Chair.
You do, and I'd like to endorse the value of the Scrutiny Committee and the time that they take to go through these reports, and the KPIs are a really important aspect of keeping an overview of the council's activities. And I was there to witness the scrutiny that you gave, so thank you for that. It's recommended that we review the KPI results and comments at Appendix A and the business plan actions at Appendix B. We recommend any actions required to address the issues identified. I note that a review of our KPIs is underway following member workshops in Q3, with 2025-26 KPIs to be finalised as we move towards the new financial year. Are we all agreed? Anybody?
Do we have a seconder?
Oh, sorry, Peter. You can say, Councillor MacDonald can say something as secondary if you like. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to check we had a seconder, Chair.
I'll ask you to second that.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. I might have made a mistake in making notes earlier. Thank you. So we all agreed. We've already said so. Anybody objecting or abstaining? So that agenda item is recommended. Thank you. So moving on, we've got item 8, Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring Report. And I'll ask Councillor John Williams again as the proposer of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've already moved this just to say that this is to do with Q3. And Q3 part of the year is actually you cannot take much from Q3. Nevertheless, I have to say the report is very pleasing. That it's an excellent shows the council is on budget. And again, thank you to all our staff for ensuring that we have kept within our means so far this financial year. So I look forward to the outturn for this financial year, which hopefully Q3 suggests is going to be on track. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm quite happy to second this item. Any Cabinet members want to speak? No. And Councillor Brandon, nothing to say from scrutiny. Any non-Cabinet members or members online want to ask any questions? See nothing. So the recommendations are that the revenue position for 24-25 against the approved revenue budget to date in Appendix B, the projected major variances with reasons for these variances are Appendices C1 to C7, and the action being taken to address the underlying issues, noting the comparison in the various appendices against the revised estimate, and noting the latest capital programme 24-25 position and variance as shown in Appendix D. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Anybody not? And any abstentions? No? Then that is so moved. Thank you. So moving on to item 9, which is the weekly food waste collections report. So this item is going to be introduced by Councillor Natalie Warren-Green, who is online, and we will have to take two movers and seconders because Councillor Warren-Green is online. But Tilly, if you could introduce this item, please. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm actually very pleased to be bringing this item here. We have discussed it several times at informal cabinet, also at scrutiny and overview. The key points are that weekly food waste collections are being mandated for introduction by the government from April 2026. There is some funding from DEFRA. There are some key points that we would like to move ahead with. The recommendation we're making today is move ahead with planning for the launch of the weekly food waste in April as required, with the caveat that we understand that we still have to get the final information from DEFRA around revenue and around the support that we'll get financially from DEFRA. And we are aware that there is a possibility that 200k may be a sum that we will need to find as a council, but we can't absolutely define that until we have all the facts from DEFRA. We also understand that as we introduce weekly food waste, it will be important and critical to get our vehicles on time, and there is a lead time for purchases of vehicles. Therefore, we want to start to move ahead to look at the purchase of vehicles for this purpose. And also that, which came out of scrutiny and overview quite strongly, communications plan will be critical to success so that residents will embrace this change in waste collections. So, this introduction really is just reiterating what's been discussed before. This is something that we feel we should move forward to with. The proposed approach is outlined in the document, and will be along the way between now and April, we will be working really closely with the waste team and the waste team in turn with DEFRA to ensure that we understand the financial position around this, and that when it does go live, that we don't have the question marks we've got now. So we are asking now really for an endorsement to go ahead, to get prepared for this change, regardless of the fact that we have a couple of unknowns financially, but that we do know that it's approximately 200k that we could potentially have a shortfall of.
Thank you. That's very informative. We're asking John Williams to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I formally move the recommendations.
Thank you. And I believe, Peter MacDonald, you're going to second.
Yes, Chair, I second. It's pleasing to see we've got greater clarity from DEFRA on the capital funding. So I'd like to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just take so scrutiny and overview looked at this item. So, Councillor Brandon.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. Yes, we looked at this quite carefully, and as you say, and as Councillor Natalie Warren-Green says, you know, there was a recognition that the key to this was going to be good communication, as we've had in the past from our waste team, thinking really in advance about how to encourage and to explain to residents how we need them to make this work. So absolutely agreed with that. There were some questions around, you know, there had been an exploration of what kind of vehicles we'd need, and there was a question about why diesel with new trucks, and we were assured that a thorough options appraisal had been done, and that was the best answer. There were questions about where would this go into an anaerobic digester, and would that be something that a facility that already exists, or would it be something that would need to be built? There were also questions about where, given that the number of staff would need to increase, the question was where would the extra staff be accommodated as well, because it wasn't obvious from our plans that there would be enough space at the current Waterbeach depot. There were a lot of questions around the shortfall, and obviously that's an unknown as yet, so we recognise that. But there was also some questioning around how we understood residents would handle this, and whether that would mean a drop in other sorts of waste. Bode Eason was helpful to explain that we expect to see a reduction in green waste and black bin waste, but we don't know how residents will respond, and that's why the communication side of things was so important. There were also questions about impact on home composting, and has that been accounted for, that people might want to switch more to home composting. And I did wonder whether we had actually thought about doing alongside this a bit of a campaign to encourage people to do more home composting if they have the space to do it, because that might help. But that was it. We were very reassured by the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just a note, I think the 200,000, I'll check with Bodie, who's leading, 200,000 shortfall is across both, it's the wider surface rather than this council. So we're basically splitting it in half, 100,000 each, yeah? Thank you.
Yes.
And I'd just like to make reference to the value of the trial that we did on separate food waste. Was it 9,000 people that we had on that trial?
Yeah.
Rebecca?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that was really provided valuable information for us to build this prospective service. So thank you for that. So if there's no further comments either in the chamber or online, don't see any.
Not from me, thank you.
Councillor Brandon?
Just very briefly, the trial was done in my village, and actually when it ended, everybody said, why have we stopped the food waste trial? So I think it will be popular when it's rolled out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brandon. Okay, so it's recommended that Cabinet endorses the proposed approach for implementing mandatory food waste collections from the 1st of April 2026. It notes that the potential cost to implement the weekly collection food waste, including capital allocation shortfall of approximately 200,000, as just discussed, and potential revenue shortfall, which is currently unknown. And we note that the costs have been already included within the 2025 to 26 budget report. So have we agreed to move that?
Agreed.
Any against? No, and no abstentions. So that item is so moved. Thank you. And we now move to item number 10, which is the renewal of the Cambridgeshire Home Improvement Agency Service Level Agreement. And I'm inviting Councillor John Batchelor as lead member for housing to introduce the report and move the recommendations. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is for renewal of the Cambridge Home Improvement Agency Service Level Agreement for a further 3 years. We have already been dealing with this agency for the last 13 years, so we do have a long record of cooperation and successful work with them. The agency's purpose is to support disabled and vulnerable people in their homes so that they can continue to have independent living, which obviously saves a great deal of money overall when we look at health support and various other areas. The agency itself charges a fee, which is a percentage of a government grant that it gets, so there is no actual cost directly to us as a local authority. So I'm very happy to move the recommendation, which is that the Cabinet approves the renewal of the Cambridgeshire Home Improvement Agency shared service for a further 3 years to the 31st of March 2028, and the continuation of further funding arrangements with the County Council. It's further recommended that Cabinet give delegated authority to lead member for housing to approve any increase in the fees charged by the CHIA by no more than 5%. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Henry Batchelor, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, more than happy to second this. I don't think there's a huge amount I can add to that introduction. So with my community's cabinet hat on, I know that this will do a lot of good for the well-being of residents of South Cambs. So I'm more than happy to second it, Chair. Thank you.
Very good, thank you for that. Have we got any more comments from in the chamber or online? No, so are we agreed to move this recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Any objections? No. And any abstentions? No. So that is so moved. Thank you. Item 11 is an associated item and relates to the Cambridgeshire Housing Adaptation, Repairs and Renewal Policy. And again, Councillor John Batchelor, a lead member for housing, to introduce the report and move the recommendations. Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, so this is the repairs and renewals policy. This is being changed in part in reaction to a motion from this council, which asked us to look at the discretionary funding that we provide to top up the government grant. The government grant is £30,000. This has been in place since 2008, so clearly the value of £30,000 in 2008 was somewhat different to today. We have discretion at the moment to add up to £15,000 to any individual project. The proposal here in this renewed policy is that we increase that to £30,000 discretion. So that's what this one is about, and so I'm pleased to move the recommendation, which is that Cabinet approves the Cambridge Housing Adaptations, Repairs and Renewals Policy 2025 at Appendix A, and the lead member of Housing given delegated authority to improve any minor amendments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Henry Batchelor, I believe, is prepared to second that.
Yes, happy to second this one as well, as it follows on from the previous item we just had. For those that might remember, at July's council meeting last year, we had a motion from Councillor Helen Leeming asking for Cabinet to look at the level of discretionary grants, and that's what this piece of work has done. So I'm very happy to see that the amount of discretionary grant available is doubled. So again, with my community's hat on, obviously this is a very good thing for the health and well-being of residents of South Cambs, so more than happy to second. Thank you.
Very good. So, members, are we happy to agree this? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't notice that Heather Williams was in the chamber, and I'll invite her to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing that I wanted to note, which I think is very important in your report, is paragraph 3 on the, I'm looking at the appendix online, so I haven't got page numbers, but I think you'll be able to find it, about working with other councils and collaborating as much as you can. You might recall at full council, Councillor Mark Hull asked about how it's going to impact our sort of council houses and just the general housing issues. So it's great to see that you're working with other councils already. I think with local government reorganisation coming, got told off calling it local government reform the other day. Don't know why it's so different. But with that coming, I applaud the fact that you're looking at those other councils, and I think we're going to need to be doing that more and more until we know exactly where the boundaries will be drawn. Just a bit of a plea as well. I appreciate this is a slightly different section, but on the repairs with the MERS contract, I think if we can keep looking at those emergencies and repairs, I'd really appreciate it, and so my residents.
Thank you. Okay, so we have, we've got to the end of the discussion on that issue. Anything else to say? And otherwise we'll move on to the next item, having agreed that. Thank you.
I don't think we have...
Did we not finish that off? Let me rewind a little bit then. So, members, are we agreed with this policy? Agreed. Thank you very much. So moved. Because there are no abstentions or objections. All right, so moving forward now. Item 12 is the allotment improvement grants for 2025 to 26, a one-off grant scheme proposal, and this is Councillor Henry Batchelor, lead member for communities, to introduce the report and move the recommendations. Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is a project that was actually started by my predecessor, Councillor Bill Handley, but I'm very pleased to be able to bring it today to get to the point where hopefully we can agree it. So some of the feedback we get from parishes is that they would like bits of their community they'd like to improve our allotments, hence why we've decided to bring this proposal forward to Cabinet today. You'll note in the report that this is a one-off grant proposal. The reason for that being that the £100,000 we're proposing to put into the scheme is the last of what's called the COVID money that we had from government for COVID relief. So this is the last of that. Yes, so what the aim of this is to do is to help parish councils and allotment associations help improve their allotment facility. There were some comments when we brought this to informal Cabinet a month or two ago around the criteria for allocating the funding, because obviously there was a requirement for some kind of match funding originally, but obviously I think the comment was that would disadvantage some of the smaller parishes that have lower precepts and therefore wouldn't be able to put in as much money as some of the larger ones. So we have added a caveat in that essentially all funding will be discretionary, so there's a bit more flexibility in that now, so that some of the smaller parishes aren't disadvantaged in that regard. There are some suggestions for the types of project that could be funded using this money. But again, we aren't limiting it to that. If there are other schemes that can be proposed, then that will be considered, and all of these will be going through the grants committee as well, so there'll be an extra level of scrutiny in that process. If you look at Appendix B, there are other suggestions for other sources of funding to help improve allotments. So if not all the funding for a scheme could be sourced from this grant, then there are other funding sources available, which hopefully we've directed applicants towards. Yeah, I think that's probably all I need to say on that, but yeah, happy to propose it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to second that proposal. I think it became very obvious during the COVID crisis that allotment use was very much in demand, and that demand has continued since. So anything we can do to improve the lot of allotments, I think would go down well. So any more comments from members in the room? And any from online? Oh, no, we asked if we're in the room, which included Councillor Williams, and nothing else online. So with that, are we all agreed with the proposal?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anybody to object or abstain? No. So that is so moved. Thank you. So now we move on to planning matters, and item 13 is the Greater Cambridge Planning Obligations Supplementary Planning Document, and Councillor Toomey Hawkins, lead member for planning, is to introduce the report and move the recommendations. Councillor Hawkins, thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. As seems to happen, the planning items come in batches, like London buses. There we go. So the first one is talking about here is the S106 Planning Obligations SPD. As we know, over time, we found that S106 obligation process takes time to being agreed, and sometimes causes delays in issuing permissions. So the planning team have done a lot of work in preparing this SPD to provide guidance to those seeking planning permission for new development proposals. It does not introduce new planning policy, it just provides guidance. So I need to make that clear. But it's also obviously consistent with MPPF and our own adopted local plans. So the overall aim for the SPD is to help to speed up the planning application process and to provide transparency on the S106 process, the types of obligations and how these will be delivered, and also to help us deliver, as we all want, sustainable developments. Now, this draft SPD was subject to consultation between November 2024 and January 25, and we received 198 comments, most of which came from developers and their agents, obviously. But there were concerns about the costs and whether they were justified, how we calculated them, and the impact on development viability. And also, there was a range of technical legal matters that have been raised, which the team have obviously considered very carefully. Now, I'll just say some of the key issues. There's a whole list of them, but some of the key issues we've summarized in section 13 on pages 169 and 170 of our report. So whilst the overall approach to the guidance is sound, we know we need to make some changes. And we need to publish more information to show, some of the calculations and, how we came about them. But I'm also aware of a late representation, which is expressing some concern regarding paragraph 4.13, which explains that developments of specialist housing are required to provide affordable housing, either on site or by way of a committed sum. Now, obviously, that means we still have more work to do before we can adopt this SPD. So we'll be publishing additional evidence, and the plan is to have further consultation this summer. So I will encourage any organizations who missed out the first time to submit their representation, which we can consider before we then make the final changes and bring the SPD back to Cabinet before we can adopt it. So, on that note, I would like to recommend, move the recommendation in paragraph 3 of our report on pages 167 to 168, which I'm sorry, I will not read out, but you can if you wish to.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to second that. It's obviously an important step in the process and leading up to the public consultation in the summer. So I'd like to second it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald, seconding. And any more comments from members in the chamber or online, or Councillor Williams? And no, you didn't. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. So just to reflect what Councillor Hawkins said around the fact that planning comes in bursts. I think under this current government, we're going to get a lot of planning bursts, and I think we're going to get a lot while we're busy with local government reorganisation. I do think that is by design, but that's my opinion. Can I just ask, because completely consultation is key, and there are lots of things that are on the agenda today and going forward, I have no doubt between now and the summer that are going to need to be consulted on. We can get into a bit of a death of by consultation and consultation fatigue, and people think they've done it, but actually it was the previous one and everything else. So could I just ask for officers and the lead member to consider, come the time of the consultation, if perhaps we can try and do it in one go if there's different things, rather than a sort of dripping effect, and see if there is a way of us trying to get people to consult on block as opposed to every individual policy. I'm not saying that it is going to be an easy thing or that it necessarily is achievable, because I know there are regulations around how we consult, but it's just to try and avoid that consultation fatigue, because I think we're going to get hit with a lot, and we're going to get hit with a lot quick from this government, and we need to make sure residents are having their say.
Thank you, and perfectly sensible suggestions, as I say. I think we can take those on board. Councillor Elvins, do you want to respond? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, we will be getting lots, that's for sure. But we've also had some feedback from some parish councils that there's a lot of information that they have to digest and read. And A, they don't have the time, and B, they don't have the people to do it, because some of them don't have enough on the council anyway. So it's a balance. If we give them everything all at once, then they might just feel completely overwhelmed and just ignore it. So it's, yes, I mean, I take your point, but we will look at how best it is that we can. We have a timetable that we have to work to as well. But thank you for that.
And of course, we might note that it's not just us. The number of consultations from our various levels of governance arrangements in local authorities is immense. Rarely a day goes by without another one landing. So let's just bear that in mind. Okay, so do you want to come back?
Yes, I'll just say thank you, and I appreciate if you take it on board. And you're right, although that dangerously sounded like you were supportive of local government reorganisation there, Deputy Leader. So probably best we don't get drawn into that one again today.
Yes, thank you. We'll move swiftly on from there. So no more comments from in the chamber, I think, or online. So the planning obligation, supplementary planning documents, we've referenced the recommendations 1, 2 and 3. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Anybody to object or abstain? No. So that is so moved. And thank you. And we'll move on to item 14, which is the Great Cambridge Health Impact Assessment Supplementary Planning Document. And again, Toomey Hawkins, Lead Cabinet Member for Planning. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you very much. One thing the pandemic has emphasized for us is just how important our built and natural environment is, and how the impact it has on our health and well-being. And well-being is a big thing these days. Not that it wasn't before, but now we just make sure that we're taking the right steps. The Health Impact Assessment SPD that we have in front of us provides guidance on the assessment and consideration of health impacts for new developments coming forward in Greater Cambridge. It's a method of assessing the health impacts on different population groups, how we can maximize health benefits and prevent or mitigate negative health impacts, and of course, how we can then monitor these health impacts over the longer term. But to be effective, of course, the impact assessment must be considered early in the design process so that the development is designed in the way that maximizes the impact. So this SPD clarifies which types of development require health impact assessment, depending on the size and the type of development. It also sets out the stages involved in carrying out the assessment from pre-application stage through to submission of a plan application and, of course, future monitoring. Now, this SPD was also subject to public consultation between November 2024 and January 25, and we received 32 comments. Again, most of those comments came from developers and their agents who were generally in support of the SPD and the approach that we've set out in it. I want to thank all the officer team. I have some of them here behind me, some of them online who've worked on this process, on the project rather, and they've gone through the responsive, they prepared the amended SPD, which we have before us today. And I would like to recommend that we adopt this SPD. Thank you. Of course, if anyone has questions, they're here to answer questions.
Councillor Hawkins. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Henry Batchelor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, yeah, as Councillor Hawkins said, wellbeing and health is a huge part of what we strive to help South Cabs with as a council. It's one of our key ambitions. And as the lead cabinet member for communities, obviously this will play a key part in adding to the health and wellbeing of the district. So more than happy to second this, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any more comments from in the room? Thank you. Anna Bradley.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. I just wanted to ask if this is brought into effect now, today, to what degree could it be used to inform the development at North East Cambridge, currently known as Hartree?
Okay, well, I'm happy to be able to refer that to Stephen Kelly, who's with us in the chamber. Of planning for the Greater Shared Planning Service. Stephen Kelly.
Thank you, and sorry, I was logged off just then for some reason. The SPD is a material planning consideration, and so from the Hartree planning application in Cambridge, in North East Cambridge, hasn't yet been submitted, and it will be therefore a part of the consideration of that. Clearly, the objective of the SPD is to set out a good process. We know that there have been commitments in the evolution of that project to supporting health and wellbeing, and we would expect to see it cross-reference to this publication in due course, along with every other scheme that now comes forward.
Thank you. So, any more questions from in the chamber?
Heather.
Oh, sorry, Heather. Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I think you're completely right. This was an issue before the pandemic, but the pandemic, that's one of the benefits of it, I suppose, if you're looking for some sort of word, is that it did highlight actually areas, and particularly for us in an area of the world where it seems very affluent, people could think everything was rosy, but actually we do have deprivation and we do have areas, it's actually just harder for us to identify it. So if anything can be done through the planning and sort of spatial strategies and open spaces, I think we need to learn the lessons from Camborne as well in that, about the importance of community facilities and creating that sense of place early on. But I'd also say that when we go forward and we look at our planning policies into the more rural areas rather than just the new settlements, perhaps around sort of farm diversification and what have you, mental health in the farming community is at an all-time low. I think it's on average 3 suicides a week on one of the latest reports. So while I completely agree with everything in here, I think we do need to also look at the how through planning, and we can't resolve everything here at the district, but we may be able to release some burdens on people that are struggling for whatever reason it is at the moment. And I just think we often factor in on the new developments, and quite rightly so. It takes a lot of our energy, but also there are things I think we could do in relation to planning policy that could improve the lives of existing residents as well. And I'd just ask members to take that on board.
So noted, and well said. The plight of farmers is pretty well understood, and we've got high numbers of farms in the area, and generally they're struggling and not helped by the inheritance tax question. Okay, so Councillor Hawkins, if you'd like to respond as well, then thank you.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I'm sorry to hear about the difficulties within the farming community, but yes, we'll note the points you've made. And I can assure you that we are learning the lessons from Camborne. In fact, I was here yesterday afternoon with the team, part of the team behind me here, actually talking with local members and communities from Camborne and the surrounding villages as part of the work that we're doing for the emerging local plan. So yes, we're taking note of those lessons and learning so that we don't, we make the best areas going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, and I'd just like to add my thanks to yours, to the officer teams involved with developing these SPDs. There's a huge amount of work and effort gone into them, so thank you for that. With that, we are recommending items 1, 2 and 3 in the proposal, and 4. Thank you. And we've had the item seconded by Councillor Batchelor. So are we agreed with those recommendations? Agreed. Agreed? And any objections or abstentions? No. So that is so moved. Thank you. That takes us on to item 15, which is the Cambridge Biomedical Campus Supplementary Planning Document. And I believe that Councillor Hawkins is the proposer for this. Councillor Hawkins, thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, in the planning pipeline, the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, as we know, is an international centre of excellence for patient care, biomedical research, and healthcare education. There's a lot of growth and development going on as we speak. But the purpose of this SBD is to provide the guidance for how it develops going on in phases 1 to 3, as is in the current adopted local plan. And so, again, there's been lots of work that's gone into this. What we have found, because I'm on the JDCC, and we find that we get applications coming in for temporary buildings, and you're going, if it's temporary for 5 or 10 years, what are you going to do after that? So we've asked for a master plan that is still in the making, but in the meantime, we thought it was best to actually update the guidance that will apply. Again, this SPD was subject to consultation. November 24 to January 25, we actually received 194 comments on this one. And again, this came from developers or their agents who were supportive. So what we have here, obviously, is an amended SPD, which is taking into account all those comments. And thank you to the team for the work that's gone into this, and I hereby move the recommendation on pages 505 to 506, paragraph 4 of our report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a second in Councillor MacDonald, I believe.
Yes, Deputy, I'd like to second. Obviously, all the discussions around CBC are one of the most important discussions we have in terms of planning, both in terms of the site itself, the number of jobs and the people moving on and off the site. So I'd like to second. Thank you.
Yes, I noted within the report with those movements on and off site, currently a level of around 37,000 people per day, which gives us a sense of how that's grown as well. And I think it's worth noting and reinforcing what Councillor Hawkins mentioned about this is the 2018 local plan and how that's impacted rather than the emerging local plan, which is about future developments on the site, extended developments. So I think that separation of the two might be useful to just note. So happy to take comments now from within the chamber. So Councillor Bradnam, yep, please.
Unless there were any comments from members of the Cabinet first.
I think didn't have any more, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Leader. I have been the past chair of the Joint Development Control Committee on behalf of South Cambs District Council. I'm the current vice chair, and we have long been asking for a master plan for the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, and we're very glad that that is being worked on. And in the meantime, we're very glad to see a supplementary planning document, because we have been increasingly concerned by the apparently haphazard way in which planning has come forward on the site, mainly because we want to make sure that infrastructure is in the right places at the right time, and that there is provision for public transport. People will know that there's an imperative not to have cars arriving on the site, and so we're looking at alternative methods of public transport. But we've been astonished by the numbers of buildings that have come forward as indeed, as Councillor Dr. Jimmy Hawkins says, as temporary structures, but also in the seemingly strange way in which things have come forward in unrelated parts of the site. And I don't know if this is the case, but I think that's simply to do with the way funding comes forward. And so a particular institute with a particular research institute gets money, and so they are able to build. But it makes for a very peculiar evolution on the site. And so we're very glad to see this supplementary planning document coming forward, and we look forward even more to the master plan when it comes through, because we want to be sure that this, key technological and medical centre for the UK is provided for in a logical and well-planned way. So we very much welcome it. Thank you.
Yes, and your comments give rise to my reading of the report, and for example, the Cambridge South station that's being developed, and how that might impact on people getting in and off the site, but also for people in the vicinity to have a rail link there, and the impact of that on how the transport across and within the site itself is so important. So I look forward to more contributions from CBC on that site. Thank you. Anybody else in the... Heather Williams, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so welcome, as Councillor Bradnam said. I think the master plan of this site's been requested for quite some time. There's only one thing, and I would just invite members of Cabinet, if you weren't present, to watch the end of the latest JDCC meeting online, because there was sort of a statement made, not by a member of this council, at the end of that meeting, that sort of implied that if you sit on the JDCC and you're from South Cambs, you've got no right to speak on city matters. And I don't think that meets the objectives of the JDCC, but I think it would be helpful if we from this council were very clear that whatever committee you sit on, if you're representing this council, you have every right to give your opinion, and people don't have to agree with you, but it should be respected. And I would, if you haven't seen it, I think some people were here, it was not the way that it should be conducted, and I think actually a clear message today that South Cam's voices do matter in things like the medical campus and other areas is important.
Well, our opinions are important, and I'm happy to hear your report. So, let us move on, if we can. Councillor Hawkins? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Bradnam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To clarify, the locations in which members will know that there are members from South Cambs and there are members from City Council, and it's a very democratically arranged committee at Joint Development Control Committee. The terms under which we engage in discussion are very equal. There must be 3 members from South Cambs, there must be 3 members from City there to be quorate, and the chairmanship of the committee alternates year by year between City and South Cambs. But in addition, right at the outset, the locations in which planning applications on the boundary between South Cambs and City come under JDCC rather than the individual planning committees is very closely defined, and it's very clear that all of the members are entitled to make comment on any of the applications that are within the terms of that area. So I don't recall that, I'm sure Councillor Williams is right, but it was quite clear that comments are entitled, you know, members are entitled to make
clear.
comments.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So, thank you. Timmy Hawkins?
Just to build on the comments that have been made, the terms and conditions of the JDCC are very clear. I know what Councillor Williams has referred to, but that is the view of one person in the JDCC who has his issues. That's all I will say.
Thank you.
It's not,
Okay,
it's not the view of the City Council.
It's unrepresentative, yeah. So, thank you. Let's move on. We have seconded by Councillor MacDonald. So item 15 looks to recommend to the Cabinet items 1, 2 and 3 in the papers. And are we all agreed to so move? Thank you. Any objections or abstentions? No. Thank you very much. So that's moved. I now have to talk about the exclusion of the press and public, because the next 2 items have potentially sensitive information, and so I therefore propose that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during discussion of the exempt appendices to the final items of business in accordance with section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act, on the grounds that if present there would be a disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act as amended. Is that seconded?
Yes, Chair, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Second. Do members agree with the proposal? Agreed. Thank you. And anybody against or abstain? No. And what we will do is use this if necessary. There are parts of the report that are sensitive and those that are not. So with that, we'll move on to item 17, which is South Cambs Limited, trading as Ermine Street Housing, a review of the business plan 24-25 and 24-25 to 2033 to 34. Councillor John Williams and John Batchelor are the lead members for this, and I believe John Batchelor is going to move the motion, the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, what we're looking at here is the annual refresh a review of the business plan for Ermine Street Housing. Ermine Street Housing is a 100% owned business which operates as a separate company and contributes significantly to the income to South Cambs. It's now a fully fledged company in that it has reached the optimum number of houses that we prescribe to be in stock. It's contributing something in the order of £5 million a year to South Cambs for the benefit of South Cambs ratepayers. So this is a very successful business, a business that was set up from scratch by Duncan Vesey and his team, and they're to be congratulated for creating such an asset for South Cambs. Other than that, it's essentially business as usual. So I'm very happy to move the recommendation, which is slightly different from the usual ones, as we're not being asked to actually endorse this, other than to say that we receive in that the capacity as shareholder the Ermine Street business plan for the period 2024-25 to 2033-34. And with that, Chair, I move the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Batchelor. Councillor Williams, I believe you're seconding them.
Yeah, yes, I am, Chair. Thank you very much. I'd just like to add that how pleased I am with the progress of Ermine Street Housing. It's gone from simply a tool to raise money for this council in terms of buying and then letting houses, to actually being an integral part of our housing policy with regard to helping us deal with homelessness and the waiting lists, and also providing us with houses of multiple occupation. So, you know, we are very grateful to them. Their expertise in buying houses has actually helped us provide more housing for immigrants, for example, for the government, which has led us to then receive considerable grants from the government to buy homes, which will eventually become council homes. So they have done an enormous amount for this council over the last few years through their development of things more than what they originally set up to, and I thank the management of Ermine Street for that.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to endorse those comments of thanks and for a job continuing to be well done. Thank you. Any more comments from in the chamber? Anna, Councillor Brandon.
Thank you. Reporting from Scrutiny and Overview Committee, thank you, Deputy Leader. We looked at this in quite some detail and were gratified at the way that Ermine Street Housing has generated income for the council, for which we were very appreciative. There were some questions about the viability criteria and how that might change, but also how the interest might vary with investment. I won't bore you with that, but anyway, questions about have we been able to use Ermine Street Housing to provide social value, and Councillor Batchelor reassured us that yes, it had, which was very reassuring, and the manners in which that had happened. We asked for clarification of some of the details, and there's an expansion at paragraph 20 as a result of what we've asked. But one of the things that members were asking on more than one occasion was, given that this has been such a successful project, and what would happen under local government reorganisation, because obviously this is earning South Cambridgeshire District Council money that can be reinvested in all sorts of things that we do, and what would happen to that, and we were, the response was that, we don't know, because it depends how the unitary councils will be arranged, and any unitary would inherit Ermine Street housing and its income and balance. So I think there was some chagrin about that, but a recognition that we don't know how that's going to pan out. But we explored it quite carefully. And I just wanted to say, on a more general point, we've run overview and scrutiny as pre-scrutiny for some years now. And I just wanted to thank the officers for actually listening to what we have said on overview and scrutiny, and that has gone in to produce reports and better and more exploratory reports to Cabinet. So I'm just very grateful that we've got pre-scrutiny, because it makes so much more sense than what we had before. And it means that we have better reports coming to Cabinet. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brandon. Many more comments in the chamber? Yes, Councillor Heather Williams.
Just to say that I think Ermine Street is something that everybody can be proud of having had their part in. What happens today, wouldn't happen if it wasn't for yesterday, and we're all part of tomorrow. I know that sounds a bit poetic, but but it's true. There's no other way to describe it, really. It has been an incredible success, but it took bravery to take that first step, and I know you've been part of it for a long time. So thank you to both the officers that are here with us today and before, and for everybody, however involved they were in that decision-making process, because, and yes, LGR, it's just going to dominate everything, isn't it? It's going to be freaking horrible, but we're going to have to go through it, I'm afraid.
Yes, the import of LGR, and in this case we're talking about assets and liabilities and how we distribute them in a new scheme of things will be interesting to watch. Okay, so it's recommended that the Cabinet considers the report and receives in their capacity as shareholders the Ermine Street business plan for the period 24 to 25 to 2033-34. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Any objections or abstentions? None. I see none. So with that, we shall move the recommendations. And that takes us to item 18, which is the acquisition of 27 affordable homes in Southern Gardens, Waterbeach, Newtown, and that's going to be moved by Councillor John Batchelor, lead member for, oh no, it says resources. You're not lead member for resources. You're lead member for housing, I know that. So I believe we've got to mix up with the seconder, who's Councillor John Williams, who is definitely lead member for finance and resources. So John Batchelor, please.
Thank you for that. Before we go into this, I think since what we're actually being asked to approve is the commercially sensitive financial arrangements, that we will need to go into private session.
So if we're, I think that means anybody that's not an officer or member of the council needs to leave the room now. So I don't know whether Mr. Are we clear?